Tonight is a night of celebration, but we begin on a sad and sombre note. Dame Elizabeth Murdoch, who passed away peacefully last night at her beloved Cruden farm at Langwarrin, was as great a Victorian and as great an Australian as any of the remarkable men and women we will honour tonight. As Andrew Rule put it on the front page of today's Herald Sun, the renowned community leader, charity worker, philanthropist and matriarch of Australia's greatest media family will be mourned by the thousands of Australians whose lives she touched. Dame Elizabeth was a woman of immense charm, humanity and generosity. She was not a journalist, but she may as well have been. Her life and legacy have had a profound influence on the Australian media landscape for the best part of a century. Her marriage in 1928 to Keith Murdoch began a partnership that built a venerable Australian publishing empire, produced a son who built a global communications empire, and led to a generation of grandchildren who are now making their own distinguished mark on the media world, here and abroad. Tonight, we welcome Dame Elizabeth's son-in-law, John Calvert-Jones, his son Mark, daughter Penny Fowler, and her husband Grant. We also welcome Dame Elizabeth's granddaughter, Prue McLeod, and her grandson Lachlan and his wife Sarah. The Melbourne Press Club extends its deepest sympathies to you all and to the entire Murdoch family. We are especially honoured that those of you who are here have agreed to share this time with us. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Friends, Melburnians and countrymen, welcome to the Melbourne Press Club. Tonight we gather for an occasion that meets two of the primary objectives of our club: to promote the enduring importance of great journalism to the vitality of our democracy, and to promote fellowship amongst the practitioners of our craft. In this increasingly competitive media world, we seek to celebrate the things that unite us and rise above the often petty grievances that don't. As we launch the Victorian Media Hall of Fame and announce the first 20 inductees, it is a real pleasure to have with us some of the finest journalists of our time. Princes of print, queens of screen, and masters of the mic, indeed. And amongst us, certainly, there are a number who have already earned and will take their place in the ranks of our Hall of Fame. Of course, you know who you are, and so I don't need to mention you by name. And please don't stand up yet. To begin, a special thanks to our principal sponsor, Monash University, for providing this venue and a generous contribution towards the cost of tonight's event. Vice-Chancellor Ed Byrne, represented tonight by Professor John McNeill, along with 8 colleagues from Monash, is a great friend of the Melbourne Press Club and of journalism. A special welcome also to our guest speakers, Geoffrey Blaney, Ranald MacDonald and Lachlan Murdoch. A remarkable chronicler of our past, and 2 descendants of men who shaped the Australian media landscape more profoundly than any others. A roll call of the distinguished and accomplished present would take us around the room and around every table. Suffice to say, we have with us 8 Graham Perkin Australian Journalists of the Year, 4 Gold Quill winners, 5 Melbourne Press Club Lifetime Achievers, and 7 former presidents of the club. And why are we here? The Hall of Fame is the crowning event in this, the 40th anniversary year of the Melbourne Press Club. And as I said, is a key new element in the club's mission to recognise and promote journalistic excellence. A commitment that began 30 years ago with our co-hosting of the Graham Perkin Australian Journalist of the Year Award, followed by the Young Journalist of the Year and the Quill Awards for Excellence in Victorian Journalism. At a time when our profession seems weighed down by the challenges of declining revenues, the threat of tighter government regulation, and growing cynicism about the media within our own ranks and among the public at large, we believe we have a more important role than ever in promoting the value of great journalism, a value we think is worth paying for. At a press club lunch last week, News Limited Chief Kim Williams, who we are pleased to have with us again tonight, delivered a rallying call for a profession that seems unsure of itself and its future. He argued that the challenge of technological change in the media was reason for optimism rather than pessimism, creating addictive new information distribution networks and with rapidly expanding audiences. And he pointed out that newspapers were far from dead, with News Limited still selling more than 11 million papers a week around Australia. As the stories of many of the journalistic legends we will celebrate tonight tell, great journalists have shaped the course of our history, and they still do. It was, as we will hear, the campaigning work by some of our earliest journals and journalists that was instrumental in freeing us from the intolerable yoke of colonial New South Wales and claiming for Victoria its rightful statehood. That maturity was affirmed when this became not just the place for a village, but also the place where a nation was declared and the first capital of federated Australia established. The more patriotic, perhaps parochial amongst us, might argue that it is still a task of our homegrown journalism to help defend us from the new corporate media colonialism that regards Sydney as the centre of the known journalistic universe and sometimes seems to look upon the rest of us as just camping out. The choice of the first intake of the Hall of Fame may be controversial, but not as controversial as it might have been. As Michael said, the first inductees are all from the first century of journalism in Victoria, an extraordinary period that began with the handwritten journals of John Pascoe Faulkner and ended amid the horror of World War II. None of them are still alive, nor are their journalistic contemporaries. So any arguing of the toss will be confined to aficionados rather than players of that era. And even then, it needs to be remembered that others from this first century will be recognised as the initial Hall of Fame project unfolds over the next 3 years. I'd like to extend special thanks to Mike Smith, whose idea this was, and who has devoted an extraordinary amount of time and energy to bring it to fruition. I would also like to thank his distinguished colleagues on the selection panel, the great historian Geoffrey Blaney, and the great correspondent, editor and author Harry Gordon. The choices have been theirs alone, and no further correspondence will be entered into. Please enjoy what I hope will be a memorable night.